The crash landing, James gripped the controls of his single-pilot craft, his knuckles turning white as he wrestled with the turbulent winds of Linear's atmosphere. The swirling purple clouds around him loomed ominously, obscuring his view and triggering warning alarms that blared throughout the cramped cockpit. "Come on, baby," he muttered, coaxing the ship through the violent turbulence. He was here on a mission to investigate the mysterious disappearance of a previous expedition, but now it felt like that mission might come to an abrupt end. A sudden jolt sent his body slamming against the headrest, and he tasted blood as his forehead hit the control panel. Panic surged through him as the ship spiraled out of control, the ground rushing up to meet him. "Mayday, Mayday," he shouted into his communicator. "This is Agent James Hawthorne. My ship is going down on Linear. Coordinates." The transmission cut off abruptly as the craft smashed into the surface below, everything fading to black. When James regained consciousness, the first sensation was pain. His head throbbed, and every breath felt like daggers piercing his ribs. Blinking rapidly, he struggled to focus his blurry vision. Lush, purple foliage surrounded him, and the twisted wreckage of his ship lay scattered across a small clearing. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through the dense canopy, a chill ran down his spine. He wasn't alone. A group of women stood at the edge of the clearing, their eyes fixed on him with an intriguing mixture of curiosity and caution. But these were not ordinary women. Their skin shimmered in shades of deep blue, and they moved with an otherworldly grace that captivated him. One stepped forward, tall and statuesque, with piercing silver eyes and long hair that sparkled like starlight. "Welcome to Linear, traveler," she said, her voice melodic yet authoritative. "I am Azora, leader of the Cerulean Sisterhood." James struggled to sit up, wincing as pain shot through him. "I'm James," he managed, his voice hoarse. "My ship, there was an accident." Azora's lips curved into a knowing smile. "There are no accidents on Linear, James. The planet brought you to us for a reason." She extended a hand toward him, and after a brief moment of hesitation, he took it. Her skin was cool and smooth against his, a stark contrast to the turmoil within him. "Come," Azora said. "We will tend to your wounds and show you the wonders of our world." As they led him through the dense jungle, his mind raced. This was not how his mission was supposed to go. He was meant to gather intelligence, not to fraternize with the locals. But a part of him wondered if this might be a chance to learn more than he had expected. The jungle opened into a breathtaking vista, revealing a city of crystalline spires that rose majestically before him, shimmering in the ambient purple light. Twisted vines formed walkways connecting the structures, and more blue-skinned women moved gracefully between them. "Welcome to our home," Azora said, her voice filled with pride. James felt a mix of awe and disbelief. "It's incredible," he breathed, momentarily forgetting his mission in the face of such alien beauty. Azora led him to one of the crystal spires. Inside, the walls pulsed with an inner light that felt alive, and James was guided to a soft bed of what appeared to be living moss. "Rest now," Azora instructed gently. "When you've recovered, we will show you the true wonders of Linear." Though exhaustion tugged at him, James wanted to protest, to ask questions, but sleep overtook him, and darkness claimed his consciousness once more. He awoke to the sound of soft singing. A young woman sat beside his bed, her blue skin a shade lighter than Azora's. She held a small vial filled with a glowing purple liquid. "You're awake," she said, her voice lilting and musical. "I am Lyra. Azora asked me to tend to you." James sat up, surprised to find the pain in his ribs had subsided significantly. "What is that?" he asked, nodding toward the vial. Lyra's eyes sparkled with excitement. "This is the essence of Linear itself. We call it Nectar. It has remarkable properties." She uncorked the vial, and a sweet, intoxicating aroma filled the air, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. James felt his head swim with the scent, a mixture of floral sweetness and earthy richness. "I don't think—" He began to protest, but Lyra pressed a finger to his lips. "Trust me," she whispered, her face inches from his. "Just a taste." Before he could object further, she tipped the vial to his lips. The liquid was cool and sweet, unlike anything he had ever tasted. As it slid down his throat, warmth bloomed in his chest, spreading throughout his body. Colors seemed to intensify. The crystal walls pulsed with vibrant energy. James could hear the rhythmic beating of Lyra's heart and smell the exotic flowers blooming outside. What is this?" he gasped, the sensation overwhelming him. Lyra's laugh was like tinkling bells. "It's life, James. Pure, distilled life." She leaned in close, her lips brushing against his ear. "And there's so much more to experience." James's training screamed at him to pull back, to focus on his mission, but the nectar sang in his veins, awakening desires he had never known existed. Lyra took his hand, pulling him to his feet. "Come, Azora is waiting." They walked through winding crystal corridors, and James marveled at how steady he felt. It was as if the nectar had completely healed his injuries. They emerged onto a wide platform overlooking the jungle. Azora stood at its edge, her silver hair billowing in the breeze. She turned as they approached, her eyes glowing with an inner light. "James," she purred, "I trust you're feeling better." He nodded, struggling to find words. The nectar heightened every sensation, making it hard to focus. "Good," Azora said, gesturing to the vista before them. "What do you see?" James looked out over the alien landscape. The purple foliage stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by glittering crystal spires in the distance. A range of mountains shimmered like mirages in the sunlight. "I see beauty," he said, "unlike anything on Earth." Azora smiled, a deep satisfaction in her gaze. "And power," she added. "Linnea is alive, James. The nectar is its lifeblood, and we are its caretakers." She stepped closer, her scent enveloping him. "Why are you really here, James?" The question cut through the haze of the nectar, and James tensed, instinctively reaching for the concealed weapon at his hip. Azora laughed, a sound both beautiful and dangerous. "Oh, don't worry. We have no quarrel with your people. In fact, we welcomed the last group that came here with open arms." James' eyes narrowed. "The missing expedition, what happened to them?" "They're here," Azora said simply. "Living among us, experiencing the fullness of life that only Linnea can offer." She stepped closer, her gaze intense. "You could join them, James. Leave behind the constraints of your world and embrace true freedom." His mind reeled. This was his chance to complete his mission, to uncover the truth. But the nectar clouded his thoughts, making the offer tempting beyond reason. I need time to think," he managed. Azora nodded, seemingly unfazed. "Of course. Lyra will show you to your quarters. Rest, explore our city, and when you're ready, we'll talk more." As Lyra led him away, James caught sight of another woman watching from the shadows. Unlike the others, her expression was guarded, almost rebellious. "Who's that?" he asked Lyra. "Oh, that's Carrie. Don't mind her, she's different," Lyra replied, glancing over her shoulder. Something in her tone piqued James's interest. As they walked away, he couldn't shake the feeling that Carrie might hold the key to unraveling the mysteries of Linnea. In his quarters, a spacious crystal chamber with a view of the jungle, James paced restlessly. The effects of the nectar were fading, leaving him clear-headed but craving more. He needed to focus. The missing expedition, the true nature of the nectar, the secrets Azora was hiding. He had to uncover it all, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Azora's mesmerizing gaze, felt Lyra's cool touch. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. James tensed, ready for anything. "Come in," he called. The door opened, revealing the woman he had seen earlier, Carrie. Up close, he could see intricate silver patterns marking her blue skin, and her violet eyes regarded him with a mix of wariness and curiosity. "You're the outsider," she said, not bothering to hide her skepticism. James nodded, intrigued. "And you're the one who doesn't quite fit in here," he replied, a ghost of a smile flickering across his face. Perceptive. Maybe there's hope for you yet, Carrie said, glancing over her shoulder before stepping into the room and closing the door behind her. Listen carefully, she said, her voice low and urgent. Everything is not as it seems here. The Nectar, the sisterhood, it's all part of something bigger. James's pulse quickened. This was what he had been waiting for. Tell me more. I can't. Not here, she whispered urgently. Meet me at the edge of the crystal forest when the third moon rises. Come alone and don't drink any more nectar. Before he could respond, she slipped out of the room like a shadow, leaving him standing there, his mind racing. This was his chance to uncover the truth, to complete his mission. But as the memory of the nectar's effects lingered in his veins, a treacherous part of him wondered if he even wanted to leave this paradise. As night fell over Linnea, James stared out at the alien landscape. The jungle glowed with bioluminescent life, and 3 moons hung in the sky like precious gems. He had a choice to make: follow Carrie into the unknown or lose himself in the intoxicating embrace of the cerulean sisterhood. With a deep breath, James made his decision. He slipped out of his quarters, moving silently through the crystal corridors, ready to face whatever awaited him in the shadows. Secrets in the shadows. The luminous glow of Linnea's night illuminated the crystal corridors, casting shimmering reflections that danced along the walls as James stealthily made his way through the spire. Each step felt heavier with anticipation, his heart racing as he approached the edge of the crystal forest. He recalled Carrie's urgent words, "Everything is not as it seems." What could she possibly know that Azora and the sisterhood hadn't revealed? As he reached the entrance of the forest, the trees towered above him, their trunks twisted and luminous, glowing softly in shades of green and blue. The air was thick with the sweet, heady scent of the flowers that bloomed in profusion, and the sounds of the jungle created a symphony of rustling leaves and distant animal calls. James took a deep breath, pushing aside the intoxicating aroma that made the nectar he had tasted earlier feel like a distant memory. He had to remain focused. He stepped deeper into the forest, the vibrant colors of the flora creating a dreamlike landscape that was both beautiful and disorienting. Moonlight filtered through the leaves, casting ethereal patterns on the ground. As he moved further in, he felt a mix of excitement and dread. The secrets he sought could be hidden in this mystical place, or they could lead him into a trap. After what felt like an eternity, he reached a small clearing illuminated by the light of the third moon. There Carrie waited, her silhouette framed by the glow. She looked around cautiously before stepping forward, her expression serious. "You came," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had to know what you meant," James replied, his curiosity piqued. "What's really happening here? What do you know about the sisterhood and the nectar?" Carrie glanced around again, ensuring they were alone before speaking. "It's all a facade," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "The sisterhood presents this place as a paradise, a sanctuary for those who seek to escape their troubles. But the truth is far darker." James felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" "The nectar is not just a life-giving substance, it's a control mechanism," Carrie explained, her violet eyes locking onto his. "The sisterhood uses it to bind people to this planet, to them. The previous expedition didn't just vanish. They chose to stay, seduced by the promise of eternal vitality and pleasure." "What about you?" James asked, unable to mask the concern in his voice. "Why are you different?" "I came here with the last group, but I resisted the nectar's pull. I've been watching, waiting for someone like you to come along," Carrie replied. "I couldn't let myself be swept away. There are whispers among those who have stayed, rumors of something far more sinister. The sisterhood is hiding a secret beneath their beautiful veneer." James frowned, his mind racing. What kind of secret? Carrie hesitated, as if weighing her words. "There's a temple deep within the forest, hidden from prying eyes. I believe it holds the key to understanding the true nature of the sisterhood and their power over the nectar. If you're willing, I can show you." "I'm in," James said without hesitation. The resolve within him ignited. He had come to uncover the truth, and he wouldn't back down now. "Follow me," Carrie instructed, leading him deeper into the forest. They moved quietly, the sounds of the jungle enveloping them as they navigated the twisting paths. James felt a thrill of adrenaline mixed with a hint of fear. Each step brought him closer to the heart of Linea's secrets, and he was determined to expose them. After a while, they arrived at a hidden glade. Thick vines draped over ancient stones, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers. In the center stood a crumbling structure, partially overgrown, but still radiating a sense of age and mystery. The architecture was unlike anything James had ever seen. Intricate carvings adorned the walls, depicting scenes of alien life intertwined with symbols that seemed to pulse with energy. "This is it," Carrie said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Temple of the Ancients." James stepped forward, drawn to the carvings. They depicted stories of beings who once roamed the land, their vibrant lives depicted in dynamic poses, a stark contrast to the stillness surrounding the temple now. "What do you think happened here?" he mused. "I believe these beings were the original inhabitants of Linea, guardians of the Nectar," Carrie replied, her eyes scanning the carvings. "The sisterhood must have found this place and taken control, using its power for their own ends." As James examined the temple, he felt a strange energy pulsing through him, almost as if the temple itself was alive, beckoning him to discover its secrets. "We need to get inside," he said, determination rising in his chest. Carrie nodded, moving to a door half hidden by vines. It creaked open, revealing a dim interior filled with shadows. They stepped inside, the air cool and thick with the scent of ancient stone. Flickering lights from bioluminescent fungi illuminated the chamber, casting eerie shapes on the walls. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small vial, similar to the one Lyra had shown him, but this one glowed with a deeper, more intense light. "That's it," Carrie whispered, her voice filled with awe. "The heart of the nectar. If we can understand what this is, we may be able to break the sisterhood's hold over everyone." James approached the pedestal cautiously, reaching out to touch the vial. As his fingers brushed against its surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, flooding his senses with warmth and clarity. Images flashed before his eyes, visions of the past, of the ancients crafting the nectar, of the vibrant life that once filled Linea, and then of darkness creeping in, the sisterhood taking control. "James," Carrie's voice broke through his reverie. "What did you see?" He pulled back, his heart racing. The ancients, they created the nectar, but something changed and the sisterhood twisted its purpose. He looked at her, realization dawning. They're using it to manipulate and control. "Yes," Carrie affirmed, her expression grave. "And they've been luring in outsiders like us, promising them paradise, but it's all a trap." James felt a mixture of anger and determination swelling within him. "We have to warn the others. We can't let them keep using this power." "Exactly," Carrie replied, a spark of hope igniting in her eyes. "But we need to be careful. The sisterhood will do anything to protect their secrets. If they discover what we're planning, they'll come after us," James finished, his mind racing. "Then we need to act quickly." As they stood in the temple, the weight of their mission pressing down on them, James felt an unshakable sense of purpose. They had uncovered a secret that could change everything, not just for themselves, but for all who had been ensnared by the allure of Linea. The journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but he was ready to face it. With newfound resolve, they made their way back through the forest, carefully retracing their steps. The night was still alive with the sounds of the jungle, but now it felt charged with a different kind of energy. As they emerged from the trees, James knew they were stepping into a world on the brink of change. "What's the plan?" Carrie asked, her eyes bright with determination. "We gather evidence, rally the others, and confront Azora," James replied, his voice steady. "We have to show them the truth." As they made their way back to the spire, The challenges ahead loomed large in James's mind. But for the first time since his crash landing, he felt a flicker of hope. They were not alone, they had each other, and together they could fight against the darkness that threatened to consume Linnea. The gathering storm. The soft glow of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a golden hue across Linnea's vibrant landscape. James awoke in his crystal chamber, the events of the previous night swirling in his mind like a tempest. The discovery of the temple and the vial filled with the heart of the nectar weighed heavily on him. As he prepared for the day ahead, a sense of urgency coursed through his veins. They had a mission now, a fight for freedom and truth that could change the fate of many. After a quick breakfast of exotic fruits that Lyra had brought him, James set out to find Carrie. The crystalline corridors were still and serene, but an undercurrent of tension filled the air. He needed allies, people who could stand against the allure of the nectar and the power of the sisterhood. He navigated through the bustling city, the vibrant energy of the cerulean sisterhood all around him. Women moved gracefully between the crystalline spires, their laughter ringing like music. James felt a twinge of guilt. These were not his enemies, but they were under the thrall of a deception so deep that it threatened their very essence. Finally, he spotted Carrie near one of the grand walkways that overlooked the lush jungle. She was deep in conversation with a few other members of the sisterhood, her expression serious. James approached cautiously, feeling the weight of his presence in this vibrant community. "Carrie," he called, raising his hand in greeting. She turned, relief flooding her features as she waved him over. "James, good. I was just talking to some of the others about our findings," she said, motioning for him to join them. A group of women stood nearby, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. "This is Mara and Lyra. They've been here longer than most and might have insights into the sisterhood's activities." Mara, tall with striking blue skin and intricate silver tattoos, regarded James with interest. "You're the outsider," she said, her tone probing but not unfriendly. "What brings you to our city?" "We've uncovered something about the nectar," Carrie replied, her voice firm. "Something that could affect all of us. We need your help." Lyra, a petite woman with shimmering hair that glowed in the light, leaned in closer. "What do you mean? The nectar is life. It gives us strength, vitality, everything we need." James exchanged a glance with Carrie before speaking. "It's true that the nectar has powerful properties, but it's also being used to control you, to keep you bound to this place," he said, trying to gauge their reactions. "The sisterhood has twisted its purpose. We discovered a temple that holds the truth." The group fell silent, processing his words. Finally, Mara spoke, her voice low. "If what you say is true, we need to be very careful. The sisterhood does not take kindly to dissent." "Exactly," Carrie added, her voice urgent. "That's why we're asking for your help. We need to gather more evidence and rally those who might resist the sisterhood's influence." Lyra's brow furrowed as she considered this. "What do you propose we do?" "First, we need to investigate the temple further," James suggested. "We must understand its significance and see if there are any records or artifacts that could support our claims." Mara nodded slowly. "I've heard whispers of a hidden chamber beneath the temple. It's said to contain the memories of the ancients, the ones who created the nectar. If we could find that, then we could prove the sisterhood's deception," Carrie finished. "But we'll need to be discreet." James felt a surge of determination. "Let's gather a small group, those we can trust. We'll meet at the temple tonight, after the moon's rise. There's no time to waste." The others agreed, and they quickly set to work, each of them splitting up to gather allies. James and Carrie decided to seek out Lyra, knowing her kind nature could sway more members to their cause. As they walked through the city, James couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The sisterhood was everywhere, their presence a constant reminder of the power they wielded. It was unsettling to think of the influence they had over the inhabitants of Linnea. He understood the lure of the nectar. It made people feel alive, connected, and free, but he also knew the cost of that freedom, servitude disguised as paradise. When they found Lyra, she was tending to a small garden of luminescent flowers outside one of the spires. Her eyes brightened when she saw them. "James, Carrie, what brings you here?" "Lyra, we need your help," Carrie said without preamble. "We've discovered something about the Nectar and the Sisterhood, and we're gathering allies for a mission tonight." Lyra looked from Carrie to James, her expression shifting from curiosity to concern. "What did you find?" James took a deep breath, recounting their discoveries, the temple, the vial, and the Sisterhood's control over the inhabitants of Linnea. Lyra listened intently, her eyes widening in disbelief. "You think they're manipulating us?" "It's more than that," James replied. "They're using the Nectar to keep you bound here, to trap you in a cycle of dependency. We need to confront this." Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she processed the information. "I have my doubts about the Sisterhood, but I never imagined it was this serious. What can I do?" "We need you to gather as many people as you can who might be willing to stand with us," Carrie urged. "Tonight, at the temple, we'll show them the truth." "I'll do it," Lyra said resolutely. "I know some who feel the same way. I'll convince them to join us." With that, they parted ways, each of them aware of the storm brewing within the city. As James walked back to his chamber, he couldn't shake the sense that the stakes were rising. The Sisterhood wouldn't remain oblivious to their plans for long, and when they discovered their intentions, there would be consequences. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape, James felt the weight of the impending confrontation pressing down on him. The temple, with its secrets and truths, loomed larger in his mind. It was a beacon of hope, but also a potential source of danger. When night fell, the 3 moons rose, bathing the jungle in an otherworldly glow. The world felt alive with possibilities as James made his way to the temple. He arrived to find Carrie, Lyra, and a small group of allies waiting for him. There was a palpable tension in the air, but also an undercurrent of determination. "Everyone is here," Carrie said, her voice steady. "We can't delay any longer." James nodded, heart pounding as he led the group toward the entrance of the temple. He could feel the anticipation building as they approached the crumbling structure. The carvings on the walls seemed to whisper secrets, beckoning them forward. Once inside, they gathered in the central chamber around the pedestal that held the vial. The glow was mesmerizing, and James could feel the energy pulsing in the air. "Tonight, we seek the truth," he declared, addressing the group. "What we find here could change everything." As they prepared to explore the temple's hidden depths, James couldn't shake the feeling that the Sisterhood was watching, waiting for them to make a move. The confrontation he had feared loomed on the horizon, and he knew that the fate of Linnea and the freedom of its people hung in the balance. Together, they ventured deeper into the temple, ready to face whatever truths lay hidden in the shadows. With each step, James felt the weight of history pressing down on him, a reminder of the sacrifices made for freedom and the lengths they would have to go to reclaim their lives from the grasp of the Sisterhood. The heart of the temple. The air grew cooler as James led the group deeper into the temple's shadowy corridors. Their footsteps echoed softly against the ancient stones, a reminder of the solemnity of their task. The weight of centuries seemed to press against them as they moved through the darkness, guided only by the faint luminescence emanating from the fungi clinging to the walls. As they reached the base of a narrow stairway, James paused, his hand resting against the cool stone. The architecture here was older, more intricate, suggesting they were nearing the heart of the temple. "This way," he whispered, leading the group downward into the bowels of the ancient structure. The staircase spiraled tightly, the air thickening with a musty, earthy smell as they descended. Carrie, walking just behind James, leaned in close. "Are you sure we're ready for what we might find?" she asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. James glanced back, meeting her gaze. "We have to be. There's no turning back now." His voice was steady, but inside, his nerves were taut with tension. They reached the bottom of the stairs and emerged into a large chamber. The room was circular, the walls adorned with more elaborate carvings that depicted scenes of ancient ceremonies and celestial alignments. In the center of the chamber stood an altar, atop which rested another vial, larger and pulsing with a deep, vibrant light that filled the room with a soft glow. "This must be it," Lyra murmured, her eyes wide with awe and fear. "The heart of the temple." James approached the altar slowly, his eyes fixed on the vial. The liquid inside seemed to swirl with its own inner light, casting eerie shadows on his face as he peered closer. "This is the source of the nectar," he said, his voice reverent. "It's more potent than anything we've seen." Carrie joined him, her expression serious. "If we can understand how to control this, we might be able to free everyone from the Sisterhood's influence." James nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. "We need to take this back with us. If we can study it, perhaps we can find a way to counteract its effects." As they deliberated, Mara, who had been examining the carvings on the wall, called out, "You need to see this." She pointed to a section of the wall where the stone was etched with intricate symbols and diagrams. "These are instructions," she explained, tracing her fingers over the lines. "It looks like a formula, a way to replicate the nectar, or maybe even alter its properties." James and Carrie exchanged a glance, a spark of hope igniting between them. "This could be it," Carrie said, her voice filled with excitement. "With this knowledge, we could potentially create an antidote." The group gathered around the wall, studying the diagrams with intense focus. Each symbol, each line seemed to hold the key to untold secrets, offering a glimmer of freedom. However, their discovery was not without risk. As they absorbed the information, a subtle change came over the air, a chilling sense that they were no longer alone. James's skin prickled with the sensation of being watched. He turned sharply, his eyes scanning the darkness. "We're not alone," he hissed, reaching for the weapon he had concealed under his cloak. The group tensed, readying themselves for confrontation. From the shadows, figures emerged, members of the Sisterhood, their expressions stern and their eyes filled with a cold fire. Azora stepped forward, her presence commanding and ominous. "You should not have come here," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. James stood his ground, meeting her gaze defiantly. "We know about the nectar, about what you've been doing. It ends now." Azora's smile was chilling. "You think you understand the power you meddle with? This temple is sacred, its secrets meant for the worthy. You are nothing but thieves, stealing what you cannot comprehend." The air crackled with tension, the standoff palpable. James felt every nerve in his body tighten, knowing that the situation could erupt into violence at any moment. But he also knew that they had come too far to back down now. "We are not thieves," Carrie interjected, her voice strong. "We are liberators, fighting to free these people from your control. We will not let you continue to deceive and manipulate them." Azora laughed, a sound that sent shivers down James's spine. Noble words for such misguided actions. But if it is a fight you want, it is a fight you will get. She gestured to her followers, who began to close in, their movements fluid and menacing. James looked to his group, their resolve clear in their eyes. They were outnumbered but not outmatched in spirit. "We stand together," he said, rallying his allies. "For freedom, for truth." As the Sisterhood advanced, the group prepared to defend themselves, ready to fight for the liberation of Linnea. What ensued was a clash of wills and strength, each side fighting with the conviction of their beliefs. The chamber echoed with the sounds of the struggle, a symphony of conflict that resonated through the stone walls of the temple. James fought with everything he had, driven by the need to protect his friends and their cause. They were not just fighting for their own freedom, but for the freedom of everyone ensnared by the Sisterhood's deception. As the battle raged, James found himself face to face with Azora. Her eyes blazed with fury and power, a testament to her determination to maintain control. But James was no longer just an outsider. He was a leader, a fighter ignited by the cause of freedom. Their duel was intense, each blow exchanged with equal ferocity. James dodged a particularly vicious strike, countering with a move that caught Azora off guard. He pressed his advantage, his resolve hardening. "I will not let you continue this tyranny," he declared, his voice echoing in the chamber. Azora stumbled back, her composure cracking. "You have no idea what forces you tamper with," she snarled. But James was relentless. "I know enough. I know that this ends today." With a final decisive move, he disarmed Azora, the impact sending her weapon clattering across the stone floor. The room fell silent, the battle pausing as all eyes turned to them. James breathed heavily, his gaze locked on Azora as he delivered his ultimatum. "Release your hold on these people. Let them choose their path freely, without the influence of the Nectar." Azora's defiance slowly melted away, replaced by a dawning realization of her defeat. "You may have won this battle," she said, her voice low and defeated, "but the struggle for power is never truly over." James nodded, aware of the truth in her words. "Perhaps, but today, freedom wins." With Azora's capitulation, the conflict subsided. The members of the sisterhood, now leaderless and uncertain, withdrew, their retreat marking the end of the immediate threat. James turned to his allies, their faces marked with exhaustion, but also with triumph. Together, they had faced down the darkness and emerged victorious. But he knew that this victory was just the beginning. The true challenge lay in rebuilding and ensuring that such deception would never threaten Linear again. As they gathered around the altar, their spirits buoyed by victory, James knew that their journey was far from over. They had freed Linear from one form of control, but the path ahead would require vigilance, unity, and the courage to face whatever challenges might come their way. "Let's go home," he said, his voice steady and confident. "We have much to do." With that, the group made their way out of the temple, stepping into the light of a new day. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it was theirs to shape. And as they walked back through the jungle, the landscape seemed to echo their resolve, a world reborn, filled with the promise of freedom and new beginnings. Rebuilding in the light. As dawn crept over the horizon, the golden rays of Linear bathed the once oppressive structures of the crystalline city in a new light. The battle at the temple had ended, but for James and his allies, the true work was just beginning. The reconstruction of a society free from the manipulations of the sisterhood. In the wake of their victory, James found himself thrust into a role he had not anticipated. With Azora's hold broken, the people of Linear looked to him and his group for guidance. He stood beside Carrie, Mara, and Lyra, overlooking the city from one of the high walkways. Below, the citizens of Linear moved about, their actions no longer dictated by the Nectar's influence. It was a scene of cautious optimism. "We need to establish a council," Carrie suggested, her voice echoing the weight of their new responsibilities. "A group that represents all of Linear, to ensure that the power remains with the people." James nodded in agreement. "And we need to address the Nectar dependency," he added. "If we can synthesize an antidote from the formula we found in the temple, we might be able to help those still suffering from withdrawal." Lyra, who had taken a keen interest in the welfare of her people, spoke up. "I'll coordinate with the healers and those skilled in botanical lore. The Nectar's properties are not fully understood, but with the temple's knowledge, we can perhaps create something to ease the transition." Mara, with her deep understanding of Linean culture, suggested another focus. "We also need to preserve our history and learn from it. The temple should be a place of learning, not just a reminder of our past subjugation." Their plan taking shape, the group split up to begin the immense task of rebuilding. James took on the role of coordinator, helping to establish the new council and ensuring that the transition to a free society was as smooth as possible. He worked tirelessly, meeting with various community leaders and groups, listening to their concerns and hopes for the future. One afternoon, as James walked through the city's main plaza, he saw the tangible changes already taking place. Market stalls brimmed with goods, laughter filled the air, and there was a vibrancy to the people that had been missing before. He stopped to talk with a group of young Lineans who were eagerly discussing the new educational programs being developed. We're planning to study the science behind the nectar, one of them, a bright-eyed young woman named Ela, told him. We want to understand it fully to ensure its safe use and prevent any future abuses. James smiled, impressed by her enthusiasm. That sounds excellent, Ela. Education will be key to ensuring our society never falls into such darkness again. As the days turned into weeks, the council took shape, with representatives elected from every sector of Linnean society. The first council meeting was a momentous occasion, held in the open air of the city's largest public garden. James watched as Carrie, now elected as the council's provisional leader, addressed the crowd. Today marks a new beginning for Linnea, she declared, her voice strong and clear. Together, we have broken free from chains we didn't even know bound us. Now, we must be vigilant and work together to build a society that values freedom, knowledge, and the well-being of all its people. James felt a swell of pride as applause erupted from the assembled crowd. They had come so far in such a short time, but he knew that the road ahead would be long and filled with challenges. In the following months, James focused on helping to develop Linnea's new educational system. Alongside Ela and other eager young minds, they established a curriculum that covered not only the sciences and the arts, but also critical thinking and ethics, subjects designed to foster a questioning and informed citizenry. One evening, after a long day of workshops and planning sessions, James climbed to a small hill overlooking the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows and bathing the crystal spires in a warm orange glow. The air was filled with the sounds of a city reborn, the laughter of children, the chatter of citizens, and the distant hum of commerce and conversation. As he stood there, reflecting on all they had accomplished, Laura joined him, her presence a comforting reminder of the deep bonds formed in their shared struggle. "We've done so much," she said, standing beside him, her voice tinged with wonder. James nodded, his eyes on the horizon. "We have, but there's still more to do." Laura smiled, a twinkle in her eye. "With you here, I believe we can do it. You've given us hope, James." "Hope," James echoed, his gaze lingering on the thriving city below. "Yes, that's a good place to start." Together, they watched as night fell over Linnea, the stars beginning to twinkle in the clear sky above. The city lights shimmered, mirroring the stars, a symbol of the enduring light of their newfound freedom and the enduring spirit of a people united.